Okay, so this is Tar LL. Dr. Seuss's first book was rejected by 27 publishers. The reason that I'm including that this time instead of a quote is because I want you guys to understand that just because you may not succeed the very first time you try something doesn't mean that you won't succeed and go on to do something big later on. So don't give up. Alright, so your dress code when you get out into employment should be whatever your facility wants you to do. You should always be well groomed. Good hygiene is essential for several reasons: infection prevention, appearance, and you're in people's faces. So you want to respect their opinions and their values. When you clock in and you clock out, there should be a set schedule employers expect you to follow. It's usually given well in advance. Some places as much as a month to 2 months in advance. Other places it's 2 weeks at a time. You don't want to be late. You should arrive 10 to 15 minutes early to prepare for your shift. These are different times of time clocks you might see. You have your time log there that you actually write down. You have a time punch. The green one there actually punches your card and it stamps it. You have a electronic timekeeper, which are those black ones on the top there. You have that white one right there in the corner, and it is a stamp as well. It is digital though. You definitely don't want to forget your chain of command wherever you're working at. Each employment will have a specific guidelines of how they want you to proceed, and every job is going to have a different chain of command. It's not optional if your boss assigns you a task that's within your scope and there's no ethical or religious barrier. There's no reason why you shouldn't perform your job. You didn't like doing something, it's not a reason why. I know that's kind of common sense, but I've included it in there because I have come across that before with people. Just because they didn't want to do something, they didn't do it. And that's not okay, especially not when you're being paid to do a job and you're being paid to care for people. We all do things we don't like sometimes. It's part of being an adult and being responsible. That said, don't forget you are a person and you do have rights, and if it's something that you do not feel comfortable doing, you should be able to talk to your employer and say, hey, I really don't feel comfortable doing that. Is there anything that I can do to replace that task? Is there anybody that could do the task in my place? But be respectful when you go to them. You should know how to use a computer, a copier, a fax, and a phone. This is covered in a different TAR as well. We use technology every day in the medical field. If you're unsure on how to use a program, always ask. It's better to ask and get clarification instead of using it wrong, because that can lead to really big problems. An example would be if you're trying to document on a patient and you're clicking save every time instead of sign. You might not be actually signing your document. You might just be saving it as a draft, which means other people might not be able to view that. If you don't understand a program, most jobs will train you for the specific type of program they use, so you don't have to panic about that. But always remember, if it's something you don't know, go ahead and ask, because it's better to ask than it is just to assume. Alright, so here is a picture of the different types of fax machines and computers there. Communication is one of the most important parts of healthcare. It can solve problems, it can prevent problems before they come up, it saves lives. If you're not good at communication, it can actually take somebody's life. If we give somebody the wrong amount of medicine because you didn't hear them right, as a nurse, that's a mistake that I could make. That's a communication error, but it could be a very deadly error. For you guys as CNAs, if I tell you they can't have anything to eat or drink after midnight and you didn't understand what I was trying to say because of some communication error, that is going to be a deadly mistake if they aspirate. It saves lives. Communication is very, very important. It's as simple as that. However, good communication has many qualities, so let's do a quick review about that. The good communication is going to be respectful, be to the point. It's not overly wording. You don't want to confuse your receiver. can be tactful, fact-based, and it can occur between anybody. Communication is also not just verbal, so it's important to remember your posture and your body language as well as your tone when you're talking to people. Bad communication would be rude, opinionated, nonverbal communication, saying the opposite of what you're trying to say, even if you're not actually being mean when you're talking. If you are standoffish in your nonverbal communication, your body language, it's confusing the person and they're not able to get the clear message of what you're actually trying to say. A bad communication could also be disrespect or choosing not to follow your chain of command. All right, clarification is important. You always want to ask questions when you're unsure. This not only makes your life easier, it can literally save somebody else's. Clarification doesn't mean dumb or unable to understand. It simply means the message was unclear or there was not enough information given and you need to find out something else. Share, share, share. Healthcare is all about giving. You want to give your time, your skills, and even your knowledge. Share that with your peers. Share that with me if there's something that you think I could benefit from, especially when it comes to teaching you. Make sure you let me know. It may just be something I haven't thought of yet. There's always, always, always a good reason to share what you know with somebody else. It's good practice, and not to mention that's the best way to remember things is by teaching somebody else. Don't be afraid of change. In the medical field and other fields, they're constantly changing. You'll need to be able to adapt to that. And you'll definitely need to be able to multitask at times. That is a skill that you're going to have to build up, and it usually just comes through experience. Okay, so assertive is good. You need to be able to take initiative, especially when you're caring for patients. But don't let that assertiveness turn into aggression. It's very, very easy to slide down into that aggression form of communication. So you just have to be careful. Okay, so finding a job, you're going to do an internet job search. You can go door to door or you can use word of mouth. If you choose to go door to door, make sure that you dress for the job you want or you wear interview clothes. I used to work in a retail store and I was the unofficial assistant to my manager. And one of the things that we saw a whole lot was people would come in their pajamas and ask for an application. And when they left, my manager would look at me and she said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "What do you think?" I said, "No. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to at least put on street clothes, if not interview clothes, when you're seeking a job." It's very unprofessional. Application process. Do not lie on your application. Most employers do background checks to confirm your information. You want to make sure you're listing all your relevant skills. Work history should go from the most recent to the oldest unless it's otherwise specified, and be prepared to list references. Those references should be professional, not personal if you have them. So your resume is your story on paper. It lists the facts only. That's kind of why you want a cover letter, because your cover letter is going to be more about you. Your resume is going to list your skills and relevant experience. It's going to list volunteer work, clinical experience, job history, duties at those jobs. And you want to make sure it's a good length. 1 to 2 pages is a good guideline to go by. And that does not include your cover letter or your reference page. Your cover letter is your opportunity to reveal the real you. Lets employers know why you want to work from them. It gives you a brief summary of yourself. It showcases your skills and traits, and that might not have been appropriate to put in your resume. Grammar and spelling are very important, so make sure you use spell check. And you want to sound professional, but you don't want to sound made up, because the prospect employer is going to meet you during the interview, and you want to be able to match that letter. The reference page should include names and contact information. That way, the employer has a person they can call and check your story with. They may ask for how long they've known you, about your character, work skills, etc., etc., etc. It's good to use past supervisors, coworkers, and teachers. Basically, any professional relationship is fine. You want to avoid those personal relationships. During the interview, it's recommended to dress in business casual or in the trade for the position that you're seeking. Your hair and nails should be clean, neatly groomed. The interviewer is going to ask you personal questions, so be prepared to answer them. Bring a copy of your papers with you, and you always want to arrive early. If something was to happen and you would not be able to arrive at a certain time, make sure you call ahead. Okay, here's an example of appropriate versus inappropriate interview clothes. You got your appropriate dress there on the left and your inappropriate pajamas on the right. So you have your resume, your cover letter, and your reference page. I'm not throwing you to the wolves. I will help you, and so will many of your other instructors. Always ask me to proofread your cover letter. Others' opinions are valuable since another person is going to be the one actually reading it when they're selecting people for an interview. And here's the references. More references.